Mr. Wendell here. We're going to take a look at the phase change and heating curve lab. The day before the lab, your teacher will discuss with you the front page, and you can do the lab prep. Make sure that you do have that lab prep completed by the time you're doing the lab the next day. And as you can see, the materials that you'll need are the beaker filled halfway with ice water, a stirring rod, your thermometer, a heat shield, your ring stand, and a hot plate. You're going to need a single or two-hole stopper on your ring stand. This will allow you to put the thermometer in it, and it will be in your beaker without needing to hold it. Please read down through the procedures. The basics are you're going to be placing ice in your beaker. You're going to fill it about halfway, and then you're going to add water to that. Initially, you're going to take the thermometer and put it in your beaker, and you will stir the ice water. You're going to do this for about 30 seconds before you can get your initial temperature. Our initial temperature is 0.1 degrees Celsius. You'll notice in the lab that not everybody will get the same temperature. The thermometers are not perfectly calibrated, so they may be off just a little bit. You will begin collecting data when your teacher says so. There will be a stopwatch on your overhead, or your teacher will let you know when every 15 seconds is. You're going to be stirring the ice water for approximately 2 minutes, and you're going to collect data, your temperature data, every 15 seconds. After approximately 2 minutes, your teacher is going to have you stop stirring, and we're going to set up our hot plate on our ring stand with our thermometer and our heat shield. When you set up your beaker of ice water on the hot plate, you're going to need to adjust your test tube clamp so that your thermometer is in the ice water, but it is not touching the bottom of your beaker. If it touches the bottom of the beaker, it's going to be heated up and it's not going to give you an accurate temperature of your ice water. After everyone has set up, your teacher will instruct you to start stirring again. And all at once, the class will start collecting data. Again, your teacher will either give you a timer or place one on your smartboard. If that doesn't happen, you can also take a look at your clocks on the wall in the front of the room. You will continue to stir until all of your ice is melted. When all of your ice is melted, please note that on your data table. As your hot plate heats the water up, you're going to be taking temperature every 15 seconds. You can stir occasionally to mix up the water, and that will give you a more accurate temperature of all of the water that is in your beaker. You will continue to heat until your hot plate heats up your water to boiling. Once you see a rolling boil, that means lots of bubbles are coming up from the bottom, not just an occasional bubble here and there. You're going to continue to take data for an additional 2 minutes. Also, make sure you note on your data table the time at which your beaker is boiling. Below is a set of data you can use if you are absent. Please transfer this data to your data table on your phase change lab. Once you've completed collecting all of your data, you're going to make a graph with your temperature on the dependent variable side of your graph, the y-axis, and your independent variable, which is going to be time, on your x. You will need to determine the increments, but make sure that the increments for temperature are all the same. In other words, if the first line is 5 degrees, the second line must be 10 degrees, third line must be 15, fourth must be 20, and so on. You cannot have 2 degrees on the first line and then put a break in your graph and make the next line 50 degrees. You cannot break your graph up like that. Make sure that each increment is equal to every other increment. That'll be the same thing for your x-axis. This will be time. If your first increment is going to be 30 seconds, then your second increment will be an additional 30 seconds, or 1 minute. 1 minute 30, 2 minutes. 2 minute 30, 3 minutes. If you do that, you will have some points that are in between lines in the middle of boxes, and that is fine. You can graph all of your data. Once you have completed the data and the graph, you can move on to answering your questions that are on page 44.